welcome everyone. How are you all feeling today? Good? Yeah. So, in case you're wondering what we're talking about, this is about the digital pen. Have you all used a digital pen before? No, right? Well, it's the metaphor, right? Obviously, we're living in a digital age right now. So, I'd like to begin and let's get to know Marga a bit more. So she's a journalist turned author and media communication consultant with over 25 years of experience broadcasting across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. And you begin your career as a news anchor. So I think she's a very famous face in all these channels, right?
Maybe. It was a long time ago. It feels like it was ages ago. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation because aside from me, I feel like I'm going to be speaking with one of the leading minds of creativity in terms of advertising, not just in the region, but you have worked with global companies. You're a leader with some of the biggest advertising agencies, and you have made headway for some of the biggest clients.
Yeah.
Visa, I believe, is also one of your clients, as well as Unilever and all of that. So we're going to be talking to you now, not just about how we have come up with the work that we do, be it writing for news, writing for fiction, but also coming up with creative campaigns for products, and how this might actually also impact your daily lives, especially in a world that is becoming increasingly digital. How does that affect the creativity we need with which to lead our daily lives? So I'll begin with, you talk a lot about conflict in your book, Collide.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how conflict and creativity work together or work for each other?
Yeah. Thanks, Margaret. So this book that came out recently is by Penguin Random House Southeast Asia, and it's all about creativity and innovation. And it's based on a very simple promise or premise, which is embracing conflict to boost creativity. You know, as Asians, and I guess all of you, we want to have harmony, right? When we do things, we don't want to fight with people. We want to make sure that things go really well. So why are you introducing conflict and tension and challenges when I already have so much in my life, in our lives, right? Did you know that when you have challenges and tension, when you tell stories, it makes it much more relatable and much more real and authentic? When you have conflict in terms of how you write stuff, it makes it so relatable that people can identify. You know, there is this thing called the pratfall effect. It says that, you know, people are more approachable when they make mistakes or they are not as perfect. Imagine if you're talking to someone who is more good looking than you, who's more knowledgeable, what happens? You tend to shy away, you tend to be really, enclosed. But when people have conflicts and shortfalls and mistakes, you start to relate to them. And I think that's the premise of the book, where you introduce lots of tension and challenges, and that's where magic really happens.
I think also with conflict, and you see it in anywhere in the world, every time conflict is introduced or a conflict breaks out, it inevitably leads to change.
Yes.
And what is change really, no matter how we look at it, it's growth.
Yes.
So would you say that that is something also that
Exactly, yeah. If you don't mind, I'll tell a story about myself, right?
Yes.
So I was born into a family of doctors. So my father was Dr. Tay Chong Hai. He was one of the most famous doctors. He had a disease named after him called the Tay syndrome. My mother was a doctor, and my brother, who is now also a doctor, and I did not become a doctor.
Because, that's the conflict, right?
That's the conflict. So this is the story, right? I could not study. I think I had ADHD, and I really I had trouble. So basically, while the kids or my classmates were writing notes in their textbooks, I was doodling, drawings over my textbooks. So that got my teachers furious, my parents really disappointed. But at the same time, that conflict that inflicted in my life, that tension, helped me become a creative director. And I think that helped me to overcome. So I think how we deal with conflict is key in terms of what we do with it.
I wanted to talk a little bit also now about, you were talking about conflict, and this is your first book, and it's a book of nonfiction. How does technology, you feel, play a role now in the creative endeavors? Be it advertising, be it fiction writing, and AI is getting a bad rap. in many places, and many artists obviously are standing against the use of AI in creating art. Where do you stand on this?
Well, that's a really tough question. I'm sure all of you will be struggling with generative AI. They need any more writers, right? Will we even exist as authors, and what we're going to read the next time? So actually, this book was supposed to come out a year ago before, and I had to pull back from Penguin because ChatGPT just came out. So this is handwritten, not ChatGPT inspired. But I had to write a chapter called the Robots Are Coming, because I think that's essential for us to survive. How do we use AI, right, to be able to amplify in terms of our imagination? So I had different interviews for different celebrities in this book, and I also had an interview with ChatGPT at that time. Obviously, it spewed some nonsense, but it was very creative nonsense that helped because it generates lots of data from all the different, information and gave me quite interesting topic. So for me, AI is not artificial intelligence. It's called amplified imagination. Amplified imagination. Because what AI does, it helps you to amplify your thoughts. If you don't have original thoughts, your book is going to be a copy of a copy of a copy. You still need original thoughts for AI to amplify, and that imagination comes from human. So it's the collaboration between AI and yourselves.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But I was also one of those artists who, in the beginning, I worried that AI would definitely take over the work that we do. And so I tried to play with it and ask it questions like, if you were to write a rom-com, what would it look like? This is the peg, or these are the characters, and yada yada yada. And I was very thrilled to see that it sucked. Basically, what
Yeah.
AI came up with wasn't very good, at least at that point when I tried to play around with it. So I didn't feel so terrible. I have used it in research that I have done, if only just to please summarize, let's say, nuclear science for me and give me actual academic papers I can read. For that, I have
Yep.
done it, instead of me spending hours on Google trying to troll for information. Because I needed a lot of that research, for example, to go into, well, my book, my latest novel is called God's Ashes.
Yeah, could you-
Which is also actually an intersection of
Right.
where humanity and technology meet, and one or the other not so much has to lose out, but find a way to coexist so that we do not sacrifice human connection.
Could you tell us a bit more about God Ashes, if you don't mind?
Yes, it was that. It was, where social media is kind of taking over. People are all attached to their phones. It's almost become an extension of somebody's hand, right? You wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is you pick up your phone. Everything people do now is recorded. It's videotaped, not even videotaped. It's recorded on your phone. You take photographs. But how much of what you're photographing or videotaping are you actually experiencing when everything is through your screen? I don't know about you. Maybe it's because of the generation that we are part of. You somehow feel detached. And that's something I'm hearing from many of the young people I'm working with now that I'm training in terms of writing. They're very detached, even in terms of their storytelling. So one of the first tips I actually tell them is put away the digital device and use a pen and paper. So every story I write, even to this day, begins handwritten, pen and paper. It's more tactile, it's more personal, you're a little more involved with it, and it feels more immediate. I don't know, it's raw, and it feels more human in that sense. Of course, later on, it develops, and then that's where I use an app called Scrivener
Oh,
to
nice.
help me, which is something I didn't know about until another author said, this is what I use, it's helped me organize at least my thoughts. So I do that, because before I had 5 different notebooks going at the same time, all with different topics that were all probably going into the same novel. But it's like, oh wait, where was my notebook about? I wrote about this displaced community in the Caucasus. You're there looking for it, but with Scrivener, it's all there. So
Yeah.
in that sense, the technology has helped in the storytelling. But I also delve into looking at storytelling itself for the human race, because all of us, no matter what part of the world we're from, have a tradition of storytelling, right? Be it the Bible, for example, or the holy books of all the great ancient religions. It's all a story, either written down, an oral tradition, or recorded in different means. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about as
Sure.
well, is how traditional literature might be evolving in terms of how we are telling it to the next generations. Because like in God's Ashes, and the reason it's called God's Ashes is it looks at a lot of the marginalized and displaced people in the world. Those are my lead characters. You've got refugees, political dissidents, people who are escaping war and trauma. And I'm giving them a voice. That was my goal. I wanted to give them a voice and tell this epic story from their perspective, because they are the people that are usually paying the price for whatever human trauma we cause ourselves, that we then forget about and move on to the next thing. So I also play with the device of storytelling here. So the chapters begin and close with legends or myths or a story taken from a fictionalized holy book. And I weave them all together to tell a greater story that the audience then is asked to put together themselves. So in that way, I was hoping to make the book interactive. So it's a traditional form, but what's inside the book is non-traditional.
Nice. I think she. This is really interesting. The word interactive and engaging, as you can imagine, in the world we live in TikTok, right? The attention span is less than a goldfish. Did you know that? So it's about.
Sorry, what were you saying? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a goldfish here?
Yeah. Exactly.
So how do you engage in today's world, right? How do you engage? So it's not that this book is not good enough. This could be the best book that we all written, but how do you engage in a very interactive way? I want to share with you an example I saw in Singapore that was done. So the library wanted to engage the Generation Z in terms of, to read more books. So they created a chat GPT called Play Library. And in this chat, they've uploaded famous books like Frankenstein, Sherlock Holmes, Snow White,
Pride and
Cinderella.
Prejudice was there, right?
Yeah, it was too. And once this book is uploaded, you're able to play with it, and that's where the engagement comes in. So it gamifies in terms of the way it tells stories. It creates AI-generated photos and illustration, and you can also ask questions along the way. So this, to me, it's a great way for us to, transform in terms of one book to many different platforms, right? Whether it's a chat GPT, whether it's a blog. The most important thing is that if your audience is not engaging you in a very playful and fun way, you will lose a lot of people, understanding your content. I feel that a book is a content that you can hopefully break into several pieces of information that can spread your presence in social media.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Why did you choose to do a book?
Got it.
As opposed to, let's say, so many people these days will just make 5-minute reels and release one every day, for example, and then collate that in some sort of link tree that people can just click on or watch YouTube shorts.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is now shorts. Even on Netflix, you've got Netflix shorts.
Okay.
Why go...
Good one.
Right?
So the content that you see in TikTok, what we call in advertising is throwaway content. It only lasts about a day max. If you're lucky, it goes viral. It goes probably 1 month, right? And it's gone. You have to search for it. The book at least leaves you a legacy that people can come back to. It is traditional in nature because it helps to build a fundamental basic need to read, right? And as an author, there is a lot of credibility when it comes from a publisher, and there's a lot of authority in terms of in terms of how you sell the book. Obviously, now with the book, you're able to then use the content to create videos. You can create a talk show. You can do podcasts. I'll show you some examples if you don't mind.
No, please
book,
go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've got a whole series called Where ... and ... collide. So I have one called Where Storytelling and Efficiency Collide. And that creates a whole series for me to do great content. And I also had an event, so in a book launch, right? I didn't want to do a typical book launch. I mean, how many of you have done book launches in a bookshop? Is it pretty boring? Kind of, right?
Sort of.
Yeah. So I did a book launch in a museum. And the museum had all these wonderful pictures up there. But it wasn't just a museum piece. I had to partner an organization called Unlocking ADHD. And so the whole launch is called Where Art and ADHD Collide. And I got ADHD artists to draw drawings while I was speaking, and those paintings was auctioned on the event itself to promote a cause. So whatever you do, I think the most important thing is a book can be done out of vanity. The book can be done out of a clearer purpose, but make sure that the book has meaningful content that people can care and then they'll share. Because without it, it's just a book for you to feel proud that you're an author.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Because like I worked in TV news where 2 minutes was considered long. So how can you get across the idea, for example, that genocide is happening in one part of the world and the horrors of it in 2 minutes? It's very difficult. It's a constant retelling of that story every day in 2 minutes. You just have to find different angles, if you will, or different perspectives to put out there, but you're telling the one story. And it's fleeting, especially in news. You see it, it's live, it's breaking news, it's gone. Tomorrow it's gone. I mean, now a little bit more because it might be on YouTube and it could last forever. People can look at something I did 14 years ago from Japan and it's still up on YouTube. You know, it might be relevant, it might not be relevant anymore, but the work is there. What I always wanted to do was take all of that. Like my other book here is actually a collection of reminiscences and stories from all my time on the road for news organizations, but in a literary way. It's like I've written it in the way it affected me. So I'm telling you the stories in a very different way than you might see it in the news. And it goes back to that. It's giving it more meaning than just something that you might then push away tomorrow and move on to the next headline. Because there is so much more to storytelling than just something fleeting. And I think all of us can pick up nuggets of truth about ourselves and about the civilizations that we live in that can either better our lives or at least make them slightly more thoughtful.
True, true. Can I just talk about purpose, which
Yes.
is the meaning? So I think the book, for example, if you're writing a book about thought leadership, there's 1,000 books out there, right? So the book needs to create some meaning for the audience and yourself. And I think, Marga, you have been 25 years as a journalist. Her stories are going to be so wonderfully, but it's said from her point of view. You've heard stories of war, you heard stories from different people, but her point of view is what sells the books, right? So the purpose and the meaning plus the way you articulate your ideas. I feel that if you're going to market yourself as a writer, you will not have a job in the future because ChatGPT can write it. You have to market yourself as an editor or market yourself as an influencer or you market yourself much higher as a thought leader. Because if you don't, then you are known as just a writer, which can be done by machines.
It was a very difficult thing, actually, to go from writing for the sake of writing, which is like what I wanted to do. I just like words. I really, really like words. I've been writing since I was a kid, just for the sake of it, and I didn't care if nobody else read it. But then now in this day and age, as you said, there are thousands and thousands of writers out there. So how do you even survive? Because obviously, to be considered a successful writer, you have to be engaging with readers and have them buying your books so that you're actually read, right? And that's where the line between author and then suddenly having to market yourself was one I was very uncomfortable crossing.
I think I want to make a strong point. It's not that words are not important, but words are now more accessible. I mean, someone who has no understanding of English can write a book through ChatGPT and sell it to people who are very impressed. But it's not the words, it's the formation of the sentence. And the formation of the sentence is the ideas that you give birth.
Right. That's true. That's true. And do you consider yourself now a tech native?
Well, I think we all need to be tech
Yes.
native. So in my LinkedIn, I try to put myself the AI-powered creativity on author to sort of remarket or transform yourself. One of the things about, as authors, right, and speakers, we need to be able to change our perception in order to try and fit in terms of how the market is moving. Because once you do not evolve yourself, then obviously you're seen as traditional and not moving forward.
Do you run out of ideas, or is that where AI can come and help you?
So this comes back to the book, yeah. So one of the ideas from this book, Collide, is one technique that I've been using, which is very, very popular. You know, creativity, when people ask about, give me something original, give me something I've never seen, actually it scares people. Number one, it sounds expensive.
Right.
Number two, it's like, wow, it's so, it's going over my head. I don't really understand. So for me, creativity is about colliding two familiar things together to create something unfamiliar.
Right.
To create two familiar things together to create something unfamiliar. So I'll just talk about this
Absolutely right,
this
yeah.
book, right? I'm sorry. There's one illustration that a book that I think it's a bread shop that uses Brad Pitt's name. They call it Bread Pitt. Bread Pick. So what this does, you might look at and see, actually that's a real copy. You know what bread is? You know what Brad Pitt is? When you collide, Brad Pitt becomes an original name for a bread shop. Do you see what I'm saying? You're taking two things that people relate to. And I think that's one of the fundamental things about collision, right? If you collide things that's unfamiliar, people get lost.
Yeah.
It's the connection that you make that makes these concepts magical.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because I think also when we're trying to understand something new, what we're doing really is going through it and sifting through the things that are unfamiliar to find something we can hold on to.
Yep.
Right? And then in a way make it understandable for us so that we can move forward with whatever it is that we're reading. Because if not, that's where the disconnect comes in.
Exactly.
And once we disconnect from something, no matter what it might be,
Yep.
even in technology involved there, that's when you lose the audience.
Yep.
You lose the reader.
Yep. Yep. Hey, do you mind talking about the book? I mean, obviously, this is about, did you use any, you mentioned a bit about digital and stuff. Could you explain how, maybe a bit of a step-by-step process for our audience?
The book took me like 6 months to write, all in all, when I talk about the exercise of actually sitting down to write the book with the keyboard, the laptop, and all of that stuff. But I would say it was years in the making because it was taking ideas from whatever I might have seen when I was traveling for work, for what I have gained from the people I interviewed everywhere I went, and the things that I might have witnessed in terms of the traumas that humanity was going through. I did a lot of natural disasters, earthquakes, typhoons, floods, all of that. So I was constantly exposed to trauma. I also covered armed conflict. I spent a year in Iraq during the war, the fall of Saddam Hussein. I also covered Gaza. So there was always a lot of pain. And, I know previously the earlier panelists said that the trauma that you go through didn't affect her creativity or didn't influence it in any way. For me, it was quite the opposite because everything you witness becomes a part of who you are. And who you are is what bleeds into the page, is the way I see it. So you take from everything you experience, and that inevitably informs what you create. So little bits and pieces, I met a stateless child, for example, in Sabah, in Kota Kinabalu, and he has now become the lead character in this book. A boy who wasn't even from Malaysia, was born there, his parents were deported, and he grew up on the streets, being raised by fishermen.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's so many people like that I met that I just thought, where do these kids go? And they were like the dust of life. They just disappeared, which is where the title God's Ashes comes from.
Yeah.
It's the bits of creation that we forget about or see as unimportant. But really, we have created that and we have caused that pain. So what this book wanted to do is find a way to heal it. And I weave in technology because it was a time when social media, everybody was attached to their apps, and there were all sorts of things that were making people do crazy things because they were seeing it on social media. And it was supposed to be a way to amplify connections, and yet it just left people feeling more disconnected. So I wanted to explore all of that.
I mean, if you haven't read it, you should read it and pick it up later. I think it's very riveting. I'm hopefully seeing a Netflix movie someday.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a Netflix short. But same to you.
Yeah.
Collide. No, honestly,
Yes.
it was just amazing, and it could be very well life-changing if just the way you thought things through to put them together in that book, and your ideas were
Yep.
just fascinating. But we'd like to. I don't know if I'm going a little too early here, but I wanted to open the floor to questions. because I can see some people. If there's anything you'd like to ask us, and please.
My question is, with AI, a lot of jobs will disappear, including writer's job. And don't you think that our educational system has to start teaching people about human soft skill rather than robotic skill and rote learning? And why are we still teaching the children to remember all the historic dates and everything that the AI can do? Why don't we teach them the things that AI cannot do? And what is the thing that AI cannot do? Can you elaborate?
I absolutely agree. I think in majority of the countries, I think there is a problem with the educational system, because what's happening is you're not even developing critical thinkers anymore, where people can look at what AI is producing and think, is this real? Is this not real? They don't even question these things. They just swallow whatever they see on Facebook. For example, worse now that Facebook has done away with fact checkers. Not that fact checkers meant anything anymore in the last few years, right? Nobody cared. Nobody thinks a fact exists. Look, the bottom line is, if it rains, it rains. You cannot tell me it didn't rain because your perspective was it didn't rain when things are wet. You know, there are facts. There are facts that cannot be denied and cannot be questioned. If 5 people were killed, 5 people were killed. Nothing will change that, you know. But the fact that people now just take whatever they're told and think that's fake news. I mean, what kind of a term is fake news? Or that was made up. And the worst part is AI is now creating videos that we can't even tell if that's real or not.
True.
Right?
Like AI influences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yes, we definitely do need to change the way we're teaching people how to think, because that's not happening at all. And yes, facts, history should not be taught in a way that we're made to remember dates, but we should be seeing them as currents of change. How do civilizations evolve? If this happened in World War II, surely we can find a way to not have it happen again now in 2025. You know, 2025, and there's still racism. There's still social inequality. There's still social injustice. It boggles the mind. It completely boggles the mind for me. And these are things that definitely AI cannot replace. If we're going to have AI telling us how to run governments and help people with daily lives, it should be up to us to figure out how to develop people with more creative thinking, study the humanities, literature, theology, philosophy, things like that. And I think there's not enough emphasis put on reading. Read the word, understand it yourself. Write, by all means, write. Pick up a pen and paper and do it that way. Sorry, I get really passionate about this.
Good.
It's like, yes. So, okay.
You're helping to buy time. Thank you. Okay, Jack, so there are 2 parts to your question. I'll answer the first one, which is, why does the education still want us to focus on memorizing, you know, doing all the basic stuff? Let me ask you, if you can't walk, how are you going to run? Okay, so I feel that for maybe as we're growing to do something, we still need to understand the basics, right? We need to understand the basics, whether it's memorizing or understanding history and cultures and stuff. Because right now, if we don't, you have a new generation of people just running stuff, and they might not be knowing the truth. They will just be, like what Margaret said, all be coming from misinformation and stuff. So the basic understanding of what creativity is quite important, right? And so I'm not saying that you have to remember, but understanding the basics. Now let's move on, maybe 10 years from now. I think, Jack, you told me, maybe 10 years from now, half of our work titles will disappear because it's taken over by robots, right? But they will hopefully be doing a lot of the efficiency stuff, right? I mean, maybe it's about mundane stuff. But, as Jack, you said, things are moving in a really incredibly fast rate. So all I urge you to do is to be curious, continue reading, watching, YouTube, and understanding what has to happen and learn from it. So now I'm picked up, like different software. Besides ChatGPT, there's Gemini, there's Bar. There's an AI for every single thing. There's also AI for doing PowerPoint presentation, AI for doing anything, right, that you want to.
I found an AI. I didn't use this because I found it once and I never found this website again. But it was something to do with characters, character AI.
Yeah.
And you could basically create a character that you wanted to put in your novel, for example. and have conversations with them. So if you didn't know like what to do with this
Yeah.
character,
Yes.
it was a way to flesh them out.
Correct. So, for example, I'm just take creativity, right? Create a character if you were Michelangelo and animate it like Pixar Studios. You still need to prompt it. I mean, if you don't know have the basics, you're going to say, give me a character that's going to jump. Obviously, it's going to create something that's quite generic. But without the basic information, you're going to get really mundane, everyday stuff. So understanding the basic, understanding how to prompt, but also understanding the tools that's going to come out to make your life a lot easier. Because once you reach to that level, like I told you, you're no longer a writer, you are an editor. And hopefully from the editor, you become a thought leader. Because critical thinking will be very critical in the future. I hope that answers it, Jack. Thank you so much. It's a good question.
Hello. So I mean, to put it in your most simpler words, you mean that without actual prompting, we'll end up with flat characters.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
I mean, for example, write me a book about creativity. I'm sure someone would do something, you'll come up with something beautiful. But let's add another layer. Write me about creativity for the marketeers. You have a different book. Write me a marketing about marketeers who don't believe that creativity is important. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
The more layers you put,
Nuances, yeah.
the more nuances, the more focused the creativity can become.
My name is Navneet, and I'm a bit biased about the AI. I don't like AI in art. So, if
I'm with you, I understand that.
if a person were to use AI to say flesh out a character, or do help them, aid them in their creative process of creating something, is what they have. Is it theirs? What they have created at the end of the day, is it theirs? Is it the person's, or is it something that came out of probabilistic equations? Can the question could be reframed as, is art inherently human?
I think so. I agree with you. I think art is inherently human. And I think, if anything, we have to remember that AI can be a tool that you use to create art, but you are still the master. You are the artist. For me, I can see it as like, it's almost like you're fighting a losing battle because it's everywhere. And I, for one, also just even the environmental impact of using AI is shocking. It's using up a lot of water, for one thing, and the contribution of that to how bad the fires were in LA. Let's not even go there, right? But it's there. People are using it. What I maybe have issues with, like you, is when they just take whatever AI has done and say, well, there you go, this is me, this is my art. No, it isn't. You put a prompt in. Do you know what I mean? But let's say if somebody uses AI to create an image, and then they then take that and put it into something else that they've done, and then create a greater image, then fine. You have manipulated the vision. You have created the image yourself in that sense. I mean, there are artists who do collages or montages. There are documentarists, and that's all. You didn't create that. That's taken from what already exists. So there is that line, and I think I'd like to at least respect that. So art for me is and always will be inherently human. The man will always be the person, the woman, the artist, will always be the master.
So if you create something without AI, there's only the power of one. If you create something with AI, it's the power of 1 million or 1 trillion. If you notice, ChatGPT is collecting all your information and it's putting it into this bigger brain than you have. So while you might think AI is not so important or a collection, it is still using a bigger source of a resource that you can find. At the end of the day, what you want to produce is still yours. You might reject it, you might take a bit of it, or you might recreate something on your own. So coming back to what's uniquely yours will be things that your stories are much more powerful than what AI can give you. But the thing is that if your story is too common, then it becomes everybody's idea. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's an open source. Though. However, AI, like I keep mentioning, is amplified imagination through the human collaboration. You are the editor, so you have all the information. It's basically like you study an encyclopedia. You know, on the days when I was a student, you see the encyclopedia man walking from street to street selling 500 books to sell. Now it's ChatGPT. So things have changed, but the basic fundamental thing is still the same. There's no more encyclopedia man. Hope that helps.
I mean, what Sir intends is that AI is enabled to be more productive, more streamlined,
Yep.
and it has eased the editing process as well if we use it correctly.
Correct. So quite a lot of times, if you're stuck, AI helps you to unstuck your brain, but what they spit out is not what you're looking for. So you have to keep, for example, you have to do it like maybe 500 times to get what you're looking for.
If you look at the social evolution where
Yep.
complete human creation was a necessity, and we have come to such a point where a complete human creation is considered a luxury, and how in that transition the perception has changed. Like if you look at technology, for example, still, even though AI and all the other automatic, things, these aspects has shown its upper hand, a complete human creation is still considered a luxury. And if you look at the field of art, if you consider, juxtaposing the whole element into the field of art, it's still not completely evident. But if it happens, when complete human creation becomes a luxury in art, how will our perception change?
Do you mind just simplifying your question? Maybe
What I meant was, if you look at the, transition
Yep.
from complete human creation to
Yep.
actually machines being the helping, element,
Yep.
and then machines taking the power, overpowering us, and making us, like, even though the primary creation or the intention comes
Yep.
from us, but the execution comes completely from the AI or
Right.
from the machine. And I'm asking, how did the perception change when that transition occurred?
the perception with other people
Perception with
doing
creation,
this. Yeah.
perception with execution, and the planning.
So, in advertisement, during Christmas, Coca-Cola came out with an AI-generated commercial, yeah, and it was rejected by a lot of people. Interestingly, if you did not tell it's AI and showed it to you, you would have said that was great. So the perception that you knew that was done by AI is a very negative perception. But AI did create something quite beautiful and quite cheap, though, at the same time. So this shows that there is a perception issue when you tell people, hey, I'm using AI to create the book. But if you keep it a secret, nobody knows. I'm not asking you to lie, but I'm just sharing with you the perception and the reality that AI can take over our jobs if you don't tell people. At the end of the day, it's how, coming back, how you want to put things together. So AI might have missed a few things that you want to put together. You still need to be able to take different sources and amalgamate. So for example, I'll use ChatGPT, Perplexity, a couple to figure out which ones are doing what I wanted to do. But at the same time, once you have it, you have to add in your own stories because these are other people's stories, right? You could say it's stolen or you could say it's borrowed, but whatever it is, it's your stories that will make your book.
Can we take it in another perspective? Like, it's also a fight between the individual and the collective. Like, you have the state, you have the corporates, and you have the individual. The creativity is always about expressing our identity, the individual, the person, the person who doesn't have anything. So what is the role of AI? Like, it might take away your identity. If you are creating something for your identity, what about that? And that is the greatest threat that I believe that's the politics behind it. We should seriously discuss that also.
Yeah, no, because I've read of some people who will feed like Penguin, has just come out with a new disclaimer that they put on their copyright page. I don't know how much people will actually pay attention to it, but it's now there in all the Penguin books that none of their authors' work can be used to train AI. Because what's happening is a lot of books are being fed into the big AI brain. So now you can very well say, write me a poem in the style of so-and-so, and it will spit something out in the style of some renowned author. It might be good, it might not be good, but then somebody could take it and, run with it and say, oh, even look at this lost work that we found of so-and-so, which has happened in some small cases. So I get what you mean about your identity being fed into the machine and then the machine kind of running with it, and then somebody else somewhere else can very well take that and expound on it. That's why I have a problem with putting anything that I've written into AI. I don't like it. I hope nobody has done it to me, but I can't guarantee it. So it's something that I've had to learn to just accept. But yeah, it's not easy, and I don't know where we go from here, because I can see many people just taking files and files of documents and feeding it into AI, and Lord knows what they're going to come up with.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Matrix?
Yes.
So everybody's plugged in, right? So if you don't want AI to steal anything, unplug yourself.
Yeah.
So the moment you put your work on LinkedIn, Facebook, it's free for all.
Yeah.
So I think the big advice is that if you don't want to play the game, don't involve anything on AI, don't do any social media, and just stay low. The only issue is that you have you're not able to PR the book. You're not able to tell the world, but that is the risk between exposing yourself and keeping your book original. So as I would like all of us to be original, there is going to be a bit of balance in terms of what you keep and what you then share. You can write all the rules and regulation, but things will be stolen no matter what.
Yes.
Understanding the condition, then you are not being so upset, right? Like, okay, this is stolen. Maybe use it for your advantage. But if you're going to be upset about AI stealing everything, then just be a nomad writer, I guess.
But it's like, as you said, right? It's really a balancing act where we all have to admit that if you want to exist in the world today, you have to have social media presence, right? I hated that in the beginning. Like when the news network I was working with said, oh, you now have to do Instagram and Facebook. That's the only reason I got on those apps to begin with. It was part of the job because they had to turn you into somebody that people wanted to watch on social media. And if you didn't do that, it was like you lost any kind of relevance. So you have to develop, in a way, a public self or a self that can be seen digitally, and then a greater part of myself, like an iceberg, is hidden underneath and away from all that. And it's hard. It's hard to do that because many people lose themselves to it and believe that everything they put out on social media is who they are. So even that is a lot of things that we really should be talking about in schools. The mental health of individuals is affected by this, inevitably,
So I think we're living in an era that is the beginning of AI, right? It's the beginning. And so we are all struggling. We don't struggle on our handphones right now. You could say that the handphones destroyed our lives. It's taken away our face-to-face communication, and we destroy handphones. But the thing is that technology will start to become it'll be normal in 5 years from now, and AI will be just part of our lives. So I think if we are not able to come into that sense, then obviously, you got to remove yourself. I think the last thought is to come back to whether you have a right balance. But the most important, you can use things to your advantage. You know what I'm saying? So while you're struggling, right? Why struggle? You know this is what they're going to do. For example, then come out with new content. So for influencers, they try and come out new content every single week, every single month. It is a struggle, but at the same time, you're evolving yourself. So I would advise everyone to reinvent yourself every single day, because something comes up, you will be overtaken. DeepSeek, right, sank all those shares. Nobody knew what's coming out. Who knows what's going to come out tomorrow?
And then go for very long walks in the forest or the beach. Leave your phone at home.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Safana. Nowadays, we can get rid the ChatGPT support or AI tool. I have a question that we also give a prompt in a basic level. then we get the similar result.
Yep.
For example, if I give a prompt to ChatGPT, then I got an answer. At the same time, the another person gives exactly similar prompt to ChatGPT, then give the same answer. Then how this content has become unique. And for example, I just give a funny scenario. Nowadays, all people or person create email. It's exactly same.
Yep.
So I think you get my
Okay,
answer.
That's a very, very good question. I do not know whether you noticed. So I have a paid account, ChatGPT, and everything that I put in, they remember. They remember every single thing. So my question is different, my answer will be different from your answer. Yeah. Unless you have not used ChatGPT or any software enough to be able to understand where you're coming from, then it'll give you a very generic answer. So if you want to play the game, is that you need to, ChatGPT is having a conversation. It's not a servant or a slave. The more I use it, the more they spit out the answers that I would actually respond. So I have a ChatGPT, and I'll just upload my book, which is private. So anything on Collide, it will spit out for my content. You won't be able to do that if you don't have those content. So whatever you put in is whatever will come out.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I am an English language and literature student. So I want to ask one question from this Asian literature. Have you ever influenced any other Indian diasporic writer throughout your journey of writing? Have you ever influenced any other writers?
I think in this day and age, it's very difficult, I think, for us to not influence each other. That's the one thing that's been good about the internet, for example. Even the fact that they found us, for example, to be here. I'm from the Philippines. I grew up in Manila, and he's from Singapore. And look at us, and we're here now in Kerala. And I actually have a character from Kerala in God's Ashes. So I thought it was really fitting that I'm here. And that was because I'd been here before. I met with people from here. I've read some of your stories. I'm not saying that, I am an expert at literature from other places in Asia, but I definitely have read them. And I part of it is curiosity. I'm just curious about the world, So I think many writers are like that. So we don't work in a vacuum. As much as we might produce the art by ourselves, we did not come up with that alone.
So my simple answer is that in today's world, we are global writers. Yeah. So I think what differentiates us is the cultures and the beliefs and the things that you want to say. However, you will find that there are common things from...
Sorry? We can't hear her.
I can't hear her.
I mean, she's talking about that globalization has broken boundaries, but in different cultural context, the different cultural variations are different.
Yes.
So how is one culture imbibed into other, and is it mutual, the imposition of culture? Or how does culture work for one nation differently, for the both of them differently? So in this context, I mean, she is talking about the cross-cultural influence and how it is getting accepted.
Well, speaking, for example, Indian literature is huge everywhere. I mean, how can it not be? It's one of the most ancient civilizations in the world. So I'm not even just talking about the ancient books from this part of the world, but a lot of your writers are very popular. I mean, I won't go and name names anymore because there's just so many, and I don't want to pronounce their names because I might butcher it. But of course, it's an influence that is inescapable. I mean, how many billions of Indians are there? It's a big country. Culturally, of course, it's influential. And that goes back centuries. Even in the Philippines, there's influence from India that predates Spanish colonization because there was a lot of trade with India already in that day and age. So I think it's inescapable. And that's a good thing, So it's very difficult to, for example, detail to you how has the influence been accepted. It just is. It's almost like it's been imbibed it's osmosis now. It's just there. So there are things that, for example, in Philippine society that we've taken from ancient India that I can't even tell you about because it's just part of life now. And I think that's what's happening, particularly in a digital age. We're all cross-influencing each other that I'm sure there are things that you might not realize might have also come from Southeast Asia. It's a small part of the world compared to how large India is, but inevitably there will be some cross-pollination, if you will. I hope that in some way